And before we bring up our next speaker, I did want to point out that Angie Moline is over here on the side capturing takeaways from today's session. She is our visual note taker. I always feel like that is a really difficult job to take on because you want to capture all the key insights and not just the funny little tidbits that come out. Like when Michael was talking about silver bullets and werewolves, I was like, oh, is she going to capture that on the sheet? No, she's focusing on personalization and open learning. So please do check out what she's working on over there, and those will also be shared digitally with everyone after this meeting. So at this time, I'm really happy to bring up Bill Redichell, who has 50 years of experience with systems, software, and networks, and has a long career mixing technology, education, and media. He's been an executive at Sun Microsystems, AOL, Xerox, and McGraw-Hill. As a titan of education and technology, Bill is going to speak about why now is the best time to embrace open learning and a collaborative model to drive innovation. And he will also introduce the Kuriki team. So come on up.
Good morning. Good morning. So I've taught for about 25 years. And one of the things that I learned very early on was that education as an institution worries way too much about what's taught and not nearly enough about what's learned. And particularly when you get into the major content producers whom I've worked for at various times, that's what it's all about. It's about what do you teach. But what you teach isn't really important. You know, anybody who's ever been a teacher has had the experience of delivering what you thought was a wonderful series of classes that couldn't have been misunderstood for anything. And then you get back to the exams. And then you read the answers to the questions. And you realize that all those things you thought you said and that you thought, no, they didn't go anywhere. And so what's really important is what the kids learn and how do you do it. And look, I've been writing code. I hate these. Don't use them. I've been writing code since I was 15. So I'm 75, so that's 60 years. And I understand technology as well as anyone, I think, could understand where it is and where it's going. But it has this tremendous potential to change education. And instead, what we've done is turn a generation of people into being answer seekers instead of problem solvers. And people now are being taught, well, if you got something, go to Google and ask Google what to do. Well, asking Google is not teaching. We've got to get people to where they're getting back to solving problems. And I don't know. The system is so structured and organized today that it's going to be a challenge to do it. But that's why what we're talking about today is so important. How do we end the fragmentation that's out there? There is lots and lots of stuff going on in EdTech. There's lots of stuff going on in education. But I know that the solution to getting us back to kids learning and adults learning and corporate learning and all the other environments lies in the creators. How do we get the creators out there all together and working together in order to bring their solutions to the market, to people in a way that's really going to help people learn? And Kuriki is started down the mission because the first step to doing that is creating a market. And to create a market, you have to create a standard, and you have to build content that can be shared. And if you go and build the world's greatest content, but you can't share it, you've only solved a small part of the problem. What Kuriki is trying to do, and what I so admire what the team is working on, is they're trying to build an environment in which content can be shared. And the first step in doing that, and the one in which we're farthest along, has been in creating the Studio and Go environment, which allows people to build content that can theoretically go anywhere. Because anybody can integrate it into their environment. The content can be portable, the content can be shared. If you've watched the computer industry, read the history, or lived it, you understand that sharing is the essence of success. Getting it so that all content can be shared, and shared widely, while letting individuals make money off of it, get mission satisfaction from it. I don't care. What you need to do is to enable sharing. And that's the mission that Curriki is on. And that's what Studio and Go represent, is this effort to deliver a framework in which people can build exciting, innovative content that helps people learn and get that shared so that everybody can use it. If you're a creator, you can see that building in Studio allows that content to have the broadest possible market. That's the goal, that's the aim that we're on. The next step is going to be to make it easier for people who do this to get paid, because the market system also works. And depending upon completely voluntary efforts is not going to solve the problem. I'm sorry, I am an economist by training, and I believe that markets work. And finding a way that creators can be paid fairly for what they create is going to be key to it. But to do that, you first of all need a marketplace, you need a standard, you need an environment in which to do it, because if you've got to go sign 1,000 deals, that's never going to happen. And so that's going to be an evolution as we go forward. But again, this is all a very simple idea. Creators will solve our problem. But in order to do that, you've got to give the creators the marketplace in which they can operate. Get them a way to get their content built easily and then share it. That's what Curriki's mission is, that's what we're doing. And I really appreciate you being here. And now I'd like to introduce Abby and the rest of the Curriki team that's here for all their hard work and effort as they take us forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. As you know, we have Innovation Showcase that will be kicking off after this, where we've brought together some incredible K12, higher ed, and lifelong learning partners. We consider Curriki a potential ingredient for innovation. We hope that we are at the center of driving, and so the team here is going to talk about ultimately ways in which you can consider Curriki a partner in innovation. So I'll kick it off with Caroline, our Director of Learning and Engagement.
Thank you, and I don't typically use a mic either, so I'll be working on not shouting for y'all, if y'all were there at the party yesterday. And I think I am messing up the clicker now. I apologize.
I gotcha.
Ginny, Andrew. Okay, so as we've heard what Curriki is and kind of what our mission is moving forward, I would say that our vision is to empower your vision, whatever that might be, to get your learning content in the hands of all learners. We do that by providing the authoring tools that require no coding knowledge. Whether you are a learning designer with experience in technology, or you're just an educator who is looking for something to do outside the classroom, we provide the opportunity for any and all organizations and our partners to then be able to easily create that engaging, interactive content. We do look at also integrating with our partners, allowing you to take our tool set and put it right in and embed it into whatever you are working with within your organization, your environment. And then lastly, like Bill was saying, sharing it. We want you to be able to publish that content and get it in the hands of any and all learners, wherever they might be on any device that they might be using. So really, I like to think of it as you bring the ideas, we provide the tools. We then allow you to get that content out in the hands of your learners, and like Scott so eloquently said earlier, we're free. We're open, go to GitHub, get our content, get that source code. So I think we all know this is the way it's looked in the past, and we're hoping to revolutionize that. So as a former educator, I was the teacher on the left who was hunting down all the different ed tech tools that were out there, trying to piecemeal it together into one comprehensive experience for my students. And I was also pulling my hair out. So that is where Curriki Studio is hoping to take away that pain. We have one login where you can reach any of those, all those ed tech tools that are out there. We have 50 different interactive tools and experiences that can be created. So as we see here, the experience for our learners, they can receive this content in a playlist if you would like to create a story that your students are working through. And And then, as we also see, everything that is created is mobile optimized. So whether they are on a tablet or on a desktop, that learning experience that has been created and is very engaging will also look smooth and clean as your learners going through that process. And then, once again, it's that whole concept of we want you to design once and then be able to publish and deliver anywhere. So we are working with all the great learning management systems that are out there to have that easy push. So we provide the content authoring capabilities and then a one-step push, click, deliver to your learners. So like Abby said, my name is Caroline Benoit. I'm the Director of Instructional Design and Engagement, and I'm going to pass the mic off to our Director of Partnerships, Mark McKee.
So Caroline's always tough to follow, so I'll do my best. But two things, 2 points. One is Scott mentioned pre-K to grade earlier. I just want you to know I'm the model of the latter, the grade. The other is I am based out of South Carolina, born and raised. So if you think something's wrong with the microphone, you're mistaken. That is a true Southern accent. So thank you for that. But my role, as Caroline said, is Director of Partnerships. And to a point that Dr. Crow made, I feel like I spent the first 25 years of my career being a vendor, and I've spent the last 3 getting to be a partner, which is truly exciting. So we take that to heart. I think probably more so than my real title is like as I said, the why, how guy. And what that means is I have conversations with you guys and say you say, why would I use Curriculum? And then we have that conversation and sort of solution it. And then the next thing is like, well, how do we implement it? How do we do that? And I've had that conversation with a lot of folks in the room already. So I think instead of Director of Partnerships, I'm probably going to put why, how guy on my cards. But the way that sort of comes to fruition is in a few different buckets. One is so there's certified providers, and what that means is there's organizations even in the room like Framework, Connected LS, Freedom Learning Group, and others who have become certified on our program. And you take it and create a business unit out of that. We want you to make money off of using Curriculum Studio. So take it, go and make a revenue stream off of it. Find one of those guys in the room. The other is as EdTech providers. We encourage you to take Curriculum Studio, embed that into your platforms, white label it, and go forth. We see there's ways to create supplemental revenue streams. There's ways to be more sticky for your customers. Like do some really cool stuff with the content. Be more sticky, particularly if you're on a subscription model. Right? Be more sticky for your customers. So like a Stimuli, we're proud to partner with those guys and the amazing things they're doing to incorporate our technology inside of ours. Safari Montage, InventXR with Freedom up here in the front. And then lastly is sort of from an end user model. If you take somebody like South Carolina DOE, a Baylor, or an Oracle University that says, we want to do something for our people, not to our people. I feel like we spend so much time doing something to someone, right? We give them a solution and just one more thing. My wife's an educator, and we always talk about like there's one more thing we're asked to do. So, take that model, take the tool and go do something for your people and not to your people. And I'll close with, we get asked a lot, so Scott referenced it, we're free and open, Caroline said free and open. And people, one of the first questions I get a lot of times is, you guys are you really free? And the answer is yes, but there's a difference in a free puppy and a free beer, right? So I'm trying to explain that to my 18-year-old son. So the difference in a free puppy and a free beer. Curriculum's similar to a free beer in that, so what we do is we require you guys to host it, whether you host it in your own cloud or through a certified provider. So that's the only cost that you'll incur working with the platform. So my information's up there, mark@curriculum.org. I'd love to have conversations. Let's sort of unpack the why, how, and then please reach out with an email. Let's kind of talk about what you guys are up to, and we'll unpack it. So I'll pass it over to a gentleman smarter than myself, Mr. Mike Francis.
Thanks, Mark. I'm Mike Francis. I'm Director of Integration and do some of the product work as well. Just really thrilled and humbled to be around such a great group of people. I'm here to kind of help our development team deliver on the vision that we've been talking about. And really, the mandate is to grow our community, our open source community. We have a great team of engineers and service providers out there, and we're looking to always grow that. So to help grab the code, build content, we've been working with folks. I kind of put them into different buckets here: technology partners with Oracle and IBM Red Hat, We've got some really neat things, innovations going on with those guys. Keeping it standards-based, to Scott's point, staying on the same side of the road. We really believe in open standards as well as open source. And again, we have these teams of engineers that are out there, both paid and part of the philanthropy side of the house, actually helping build the product. So that's another great place. And we have our solution partners, like with Freedom here and the rest of the team, just going out and actually taking the technology and doing some really cool things with it. So that's kind of our dream, to kind of build this out and continue to grow the engineering team and the solution team as well. I'm here to talk any of that thanks.
We are wrapping up, so thank you all for listening, but if you will find on your tables, there are cards that say calling all learning creators, and there is a QR code with a form for you to fill out, and again, it's this whole world of, we just want to build partnerships. We want to hear what you think we can do to and better our product and better how we're putting it out there, and what you feel like you can do to help us in that effort. Because we need some more content creators, and we need to get more of this content out in the hands of our learners. So thank you very much.
All right, we are now gearing up for the first presentation in our Innovation Showcase. As a reminder, there are 3 showcases throughout the day: K12, Higher Ed, and Lifelong Learning. So we are about to kick off our K12 showcase, which is really exciting. And first up on this track is Stimuli.
Okay. Hello. Hello. Okay, perfect. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Taylor Shead. I'm the CEO and founder of Stimuli Education. We were founded in 2016 with a mission to do 2 things. One, from my personal experience, I felt like my K12 education did not prepare me for the career in medicine that I sought after. And 2, we felt like there was so much commercial technology available on iPhones and in gaming that was not available in the classroom. So Stimuli is on a mission to solve that. And ultimately, we want to do the same thing that everybody else in here has talked about, which is completely reduce any barriers to students in their education, including how boring the classroom is. So our origin story, I've kind of told you that a little bit. Let me tell you about the pivot that we took in 2020. So we had built a platform that helped conduct virtual mentorships and internships where Fortune 500 companies and their virtual mentors would connect with high school students. And 2020 came, and all of a sudden, some students I had been working with for 4 years were at risk of not graduating because how would they connect with their teachers? So we partnered with Dallas ISD and the Dallas Education Foundation to develop a virtual classroom on top of our platform. We built it in 3 months and launched it in June of 2020. So what we found out earlier than most people did is just because you put students in the same Zoom-like window does not mean learning will take place and does not mean they'll have fun. So when you look at the current state of education, a lot of these facts most of us know. Number 1, students globally are facing a $17 trillion lifetime earning income loss just because of the academic loss because of the pandemic. 2, we have a lot more teachers leaving the profession. We have 600,000 less teachers today than we did have in 2020. And then what we have is that parents aren't satisfied anymore. All of us could see what our students were learning through the virtual classroom, and now parents have said, we're taking autonomy, we're leaving our public schools, and we're getting into homeschooling community-based learning. Now, again, the specific problem that Stimuli is focused on solving is around student engagement, and the bright spot that we have is when you look at this last point here, that kids retain 10% of what they read, 20% of what they hear, 50% of what they see, but 90% of what they actually do themselves. And this can be done in a virtual environment like our metaverse of learning. So our thesis is that education, as you've heard today, should be more like a video game. As a student, I should be able to pick out how I want to represent myself in a digital world. I should be able to travel across time and space to live the learning and experience it versus just hearing it and seeing it. The other thing that's really important to know is games are extremely scalable. Most students you could hand a video game to, and they wouldn't have to read an instruction manual. You don't have to teach teachers how to play the game in order for students to use it. So there's power in scale of video games. And then when we talk about the ability to move at your own pace, and the ability to do what you love, in a virtual gamified environment, that's the exact same thing students would be able to do. They can choose their own quest that they want to go on. They can get rewarded in real time for completing that quest and continue to build and learn at their own pace, which again goes back to solving a lot of the problems that we're seeing today with the massive teacher shortages. So these are real screenshots from our product. I'll kind of explain what you're looking at here. So the 3D classroom up on the top left-hand corner is a 3D environment built to look like a classroom that a video conference is embedded into. So as an instructor, you can show up in real time in a video game. The tool down here, the Teacher and Creator tool, is powered by Kuriki. Kuriki authors and allows us to publish any of this open source, open educational resources into our metaverse, and then in real time, that data comes back to the teacher on how that student is performing. We are integrated into student information systems and learning management systems. So as a school district, you can take attendance in our virtual world, and it actually will get sent to your student information system so you can report it to the state. This is a key point of what we have in our technology that a lot of these other gaming companies are missing. When we talk about how do you easily integrate game-based learning into a classroom, we have a platform that's built like a learning management system on steroids that enables you to do that. And then the last two, which are things I'm really excited about, is the idea of these immersive worlds. You heard today about this alien zoo that 800 students are attending and they're learning in space. That's the same thing that we want to do, but we want to empower teachers and students to develop their own immersive worlds. So can you imagine, as a student, I've reached mastery, and instead of me sitting in the classroom board, I'm then developing some out there, out of space world that my peers are going to use to learn. And oh, by the way, what if I get rewarded for building that tool that's impacting the rest of the world? Rewarded in digital rewards and micro scholarships and physical rewards. Imagine in Dallas, a student builds this world that's shown to be highly effective, and now I'm able to attend a Dallas Mavericks game with my family. And previously, I would never have been able to afford to do that. And then last but not least, one of my favorite parts is the global business district. So as I said, I was highly dissatisfied with the fact that I went to college wanting to be a reconstructive plastic surgeon, but I had no idea what the environment would look like and the tools that I would need to succeed at that level. So imagine as a student, I can walk into Apple's headquarters, I can get greeted by a digital Tim Cook, I can take a design class authored by Johnny Ive. All of those experiences can save on my resume, and ultimately Apple can pay me to build on top of their world. And this becomes a self-generating metaverse of learning where we're able to understand more about what students are interested in. They're able to guide their own pathways. And last but not least, it's a lifelong learning record staked to the blockchain that no one can take away from them. So just kind of to repeat how we're solving these problems. With accessibility, we're building an industrial metaverse of learning that's open for every school to stake their land on and build in this world. Two, as far as engagement, we have a learn-to-earn model and a build-to-earn model, again, where creators and learners are rewarded in real time, just as Scott mentioned, for the learning that's taking place in this world. And for scalability and sustainability, we want to take Kuriki kind of to the next level, push them even further, and co-author a no-code game development tool that's like Roblox, that again will allow our educators, our students, and brands to build the games of learning that are extremely scalable and empower students to take on their own educational journey. So our results, we launched this product in August of 2021 at Dallas Hybrid Prep, which is the first hybrid school in the state of Texas. And already, these students have outperformed all of their peers across science, math, and reading by 10+ points. Their students in 5th and 6th grade that are it's about 60% of their students are at mastery in science. And this is for a large urban school district that's 86% economically disadvantaged and about 70% English language learners. So we know we're doing something right. The other thing is we happen to win a few awards in 2021. Forbes and the Center for Education Reform recognized us as the most transformative app for students. Unity recognized us as one of the top 25 EdTech creators. And Global Silicon Valley has recognized us as one of the top 200 startups in the world. So I'm over my time, but I have to speak to the last part about this great collaboration. By the way, we'll feel successful when we reach 50 million learners, but I'll spend a moment to talk about this. So working with a team at Curriki, if you haven't done it, is almost like, I can't even say working with your brothers and sisters because sometimes you don't get along with your family, but it's been the absolute best experience possible because you have leaders who have been where we want to go, and Abby, who's been an EdTech leader. You have Leo and Mark, who understand the power of partnership and understand that sometimes early stage startups need help. So we've gotten great help and support from Curriki, and Scott always asks the question, what can we do better? It's rare that you show up on a call or you're meeting with somebody, they're asking you that question. The second power of this model collaboration is with Dallas ISD. The scale is 145,000 students, so we have the opportunity to prove something that's highly disruptive at scale. The third part of our partnership happens to do with Dallas Hybrid Prep, which is our small, controlled environment where they can help us co-design and build this platform together. And then last but not least, you have my team Stimuli, who's completely unbound in how we think. And we have been driving the district and their foundation to think about things bigger and faster than they've ever thought about before. So if you are a content creator, a donor, if you have any cool technology in AI or machine learning, we would love to have a conversation with you about working with you. Or if you're an educator, we would love to bring you to our metaverse of learning. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Really nice to hear from Stimuli. Next up in our innovation showcase is the South Carolina Department of Education. Let's give it up.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Lee DeAndre. I'm from South Carolina. I'm a retired school superintendent who got called back into action because of a passion that I have, and that is for all students to be able to learn and have access to resources. Our state superintendent, prior to the pandemic, had actually pulled into action a group of districts who wanted to, this sounds like such an old idea pre-COVID, but they wanted to be able to continue learning in a digital learning environment on inclement weather days. We have a lot of tornadoes, a lot of hurricanes, a lot of snow, et cetera, et cetera. And so we looked at what does that digital learning environment look like? And as I sat here this morning and listened to the keynote, I was just so impressed with the vision that I heard from the panel. And think about our little vision was so limited in so many ways, but like little ideas, it began to grow very quickly. COVID obviously changed everything in South Carolina, as I'm sure it did for many of you in your states. Trying to provide those personalized, continued learning experiences was quite the challenge. In South Carolina, we didn't even have broadband across the state. We actually bought for some students hotspots, but they still couldn't connect to the internet. And so we went about during that time, as well as in a resetting mode, thinking about what is it going to look like in the future? What is learning going to look like? We knew that it would never go back. And I think that's a message I've heard here several times today. We're moving forward. Some of us a lot faster than others. But the environment is, excuse me, is changing forever as far as teaching and learning is concerned. Where am I pointing?
I think it's working. So
Oh.
we lift it off stage.
So you can move on. As you can see, for some of our teachers, and my perspective to share with you today is We're talking about moving, as I've heard it called, a government organization that's not very efficient, which is a K12 statewide system. And I'll be honest, I get frustrated with the pace of change too. I have some colleagues or some friends in South Carolina who work at BMW, and you know what? They can close down a line and open up a new one in less than 45 days. And they ask me frequently, why can't you change the K-12 environment quickly? It's like Dr. Crow said, when you're working with healthcare and when you're working with learning and education, it's unique. It doesn't mean we don't need to improve the pace of change, because the students are definitely in a call for a more improved, better learning environment. So the change process. When we looked at the digital ecosystem, we really tried to think about what our goal is. And our goal is really threefold. One, we wanted to be sure in South Carolina that every student, regardless of where they live and what tools they have equitable access. We wanted to also make it palatable for teachers, and that we hoped we could provide tools and make it easier for planning and personalized and differentiating instruction. And so we found that there were some areas that we identified to achieve that goal we were going to need to accomplish or to work on. Vision and leadership. I mean, it's very clear here today, leadership matters. And so without leadership and vision and where we're going to try to move this environment and this government or statewide K-12 environment, you won't be able to do it. And we've actually had to put some tools in place, there's some seminars in place and some work. I just met Kelly, who's working in Arizona, and we were talking about the fact that so many districts are local controlled districts, and yet when you're looking at this kind of delivery, you're really looking at systems. And so understanding and helping those local leaders want to be a part of the system and understanding, I mean, simple things like, well, it's not simple, but interoperability and our work with IMS Global and trying to make sure that all those platforms work. It is a big challenge from Greenville, South Carolina to Charleston, South Carolina, when they each had their own unique system in their district of how they do things. But we're getting there. The other two areas that we identified that needed our full attention would be our human resources and professional development work. I think personally this is the largest change. We have teachers in our system who are 4th and 5th generation teachers, and their way of providing learning opportunities is deeply entrenched in that historical perspective. And so I really wish I had some teachers with me right now in all this innovation conversation so that they could begin to see that our profession is changing and evolving, and it will never be the same again. That whole mantra of what provision of learning opportunities look like is gone. It's evolving. I shouldn't say gone, it's evolved. And then finally, the technical infrastructure system. And again, this has been a challenge when you have locally controlled districts, understanding just how important it is to become systemic in your thinking for your foundation and your infrastructure. So what we did was we decided we would create, and we used Safari Montage as our vendor platform, we would create a statewide learning object repository that would interface with every district's LMS and single authentication process regardless of what they use. And so they also were able to keep their own local controlled LMS and their resources that are available there. So we did not mandate that everybody do the same thing in terms of adopting a statewide LMS system. That's the graphic that if you go to Safari Montage, you would see how it interfaces with both our student information system as well as our the LMSs. And you'll notice that in that that library, there are quite a few open source resources that we wanted to make sure were available, and we're still adding more to that. And then we talked about the content, and the content being really from 3 areas, and you've heard them up here today: open sources, vendors, and we wanted to have some teacher-created content. I think we know that teacher to teacher is a powerful way to create change. And so that was when we really started having a deep conversation with Curriki. Where and how could teachers create content and actually be able to bring it into that learning object repository and then share it with each other? And one of the only criteria in there is demonstration of effectiveness. So we have teachers creating some really great things now, and we have students being a part of those creations, which I think is great. We heard a lot today about student agency, and I think that's where we will get to in South Carolina. It's just a slower process in the K12 government organization than I would like for it to be. And after you have all the tools in place and the platform and the technical infrastructure, this is really where we're concentrating our work now in South Carolina. And that is to literally visualize and help teachers visualize what those interactive technologies look like. And I'm just a sponge listening to some of you in conversations last night at the welcoming session and then this morning, because I think this is where I think the momentum for change is really going to get traction. Once those tools are in place and those infrastructures are in place, this is where the sky's the limit. And I know we have some teachers who are going to just move quickly in South Carolina. We're working with our teacher prep programs to help them sort of alter their vision. And I had a conversation with Dr. Craig just after he finished, and we hope to look at what they're doing at ASU in terms of teacher prep. And maybe in a couple of years at this conference, I can come back to you and say, we moved faster, we got a lot of momentum, we did it more quickly because, Caroline, the last slide, because I think it's so critical for the next generation. And without sounding smushy, there'll be pockets across this country where your work has been very successfully implemented, and there'll be there'll be school districts in small areas. A lot of small areas, though, begin to amass themselves as the more common, prolific implementation and change. And I think all of us in this room, and I think even I know our state superintendent feels very strongly that in order for us to be a competitive country and in order for us to prepare students for the workforce, we've got to provide a different learning environment. So that's my contact information. I look forward to, as I said, I'm a sponge to hear more about what you're doing. And especially to my state partners, friends in other positions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. It's a learning process. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Our final K12 presenter for this session is from zSpace. Give it up for zSpace.
All right, earlier Mark talked about there not being a problem with the microphone. After I get up here and speak, you may think there is something wrong with it. I too am from the South, like my colleagues here, coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee. My name is Joe Parlier, and after about a 23-year career in education as everything from a classroom teacher to an elementary and high school principal to associate state school superintendent, I had the opportunity to see education through a lot of different lenses. And in one of my last roles, it was all about turning around low-performance schools. What we really couldn't get to, though, was the heart of engagement. And the fact that if we could get to that engagement factor, students would become more motivated. They would then learn more. They would demonstrate mastery, and those types of things that we were really trying to turn around. So I had a chance to come to work in the education technology space with zSpace. And before I go into a conversation about how we're working to inspire student success in science, mathematics, and career and technical education, I want to step back and talk about the roots of zSpace. Back around 2007, K12, the funding arm for the Central Intelligence Agency, was looking for a way to engage learners with virtual content in a way that they can manipulate variables, realize outcomes, etc. And as a result of that project, over time, around 2015, zSpace evolved into an instructional tool that can be used not only in the K-12 classroom, but college and university, workforce, etc. So while I'm featured in the K-12 session, I'm also going to share with you some examples of collaboration across other sectors. And the goal there was simple. We work well on the x-axis, we work well on the y-axis, but how can we leverage that z-axis to bring things to life for learners? So here we are. And as we created zSpace, it was all about considering what we knew already. And we know that in the virtual reality space, there are affordances and characteristics that can be liberating, provide access, but also can be restrictive. So with that head-mounted display, providing the full immersive experience, providing that level of interaction, but also having a unique experience for every learner. Having some of the health issues that relate to the HMD. We also took a look at augmented reality, and with augmented reality, let's go ahead, Caroline, give you a thumbs up. The idea that we can take any device, we can go into a space, we can augment or supplement that space with digital content. And how when we do that, we're able to share that experience with one another. We're able to talk about what we see. We're able to make those changes collaboratively and see what happens. So these two sets of characteristics really led to the development of what we call zSpace. And what zSpace does is it combines elements of AR and VR to create learning experiences that don't require the student to be restricted by the head-mounted display. And they allow for that collaboration, that interactivity, but most importantly, providing something comprehensive for teachers so that as they grapple with their use of time, their effectiveness, their efficiency, it's realistic to expect them to be able to incorporate a tool like this into instruction.
Welcome to the real world of virtual reality on the zSpace platform. What is zSpace? It's a tabletop virtual reality that's transforming education today, regardless of whether students are learning at school or remotely. zSpace functions as your typical Windows PC until you open a zSpace application, and then the magic really begins. Long story short, zSpace tracks the user's stylus in real time, allowing the user to comfortably reach in, interact, move around, dissect, blow up, or change different variables within the environment.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about why. And what we did was we went back and really looked at the research around virtual reality, what it is, what does it afford, and what kind of outcomes are we experiencing. And what we found is that looking back to around 1980, 42 years of research on this tool, what is it that it allows learners to do that they otherwise couldn't do? And it really, if you look at Jeremy Balinson out of Stanford University's research, he identifies that it falls into one or more of four categories. Things that would otherwise be too dangerous to do, impossible to do, counterproductive to do, or too expensive to do. And since 2015, in over 3,000 school districts with over 1 million students, we're starting to realize results and gains through research on these implementations. Now, incidentally, we anticipate these numbers based on currently planned implementations to double in the coming school year 22-23. And let's take a look at those outcomes. Through external research, 5 key outcomes have been realized. I like to couple two sets together. One, that deepen understanding of content with student achievement. The fact that when students have the opportunity to experience things before they even read about them, that comprehension increases significantly. The fact that when they go in and they experience Newton's laws of motion, then when they're identified in the world around them, they understand it. The other area, creating engagement and motivating learners. It's that whole excitement factor that we've all talked about, that we meet students where they are, provide them with a vehicle through which they enjoy working to give them their content. And then finally, preparation for the workforce. Whether it's one to work at Delta, in the hospitality industry, regardless of where someone goes to work, they're going to encounter virtual reality as a part of their learning. So how have we collaborated to innovate and to really drive innovation at an accelerated rate? Well, some examples of collaboration. Because zSpace is an open platform, we have formally collaborated, but we have also just provided devices so that others can create. Some examples include, with Visible Body, a partnership to bring biology as well as human anatomy and physiology to life. Another one in the K12 CTE space is partnership with Vivid Science to bring a full dissectable library of everything from animals to cells to machines, etc. for student learning. Genentech. We're going to show a short video.
Experts at Genentech, in collaboration with zSpace, have developed 2 experiences that you can use to teach about the influenza flu virus and engage your students in discussion around this important topic. In human response to the flu, students will learn about symptoms of infection. They will learn about the characteristics of a virus and how it reproduces. Students will also learn about how they can defend themselves against infection. In testing for the flu, students explore how to determine if someone has the flu. Understanding gained from these experiences can be applied to other viruses. These activities are supported by activity plans available at zspace.com/edu.
Believe it or not, that was released about 4 months prior to the pandemic. Genentech specifically, earlier it was mentioned that school to workforce, but they specifically wanted to teach the skill of pipetting. So you notice in that testing for the flu, they use that content as the vehicle to really drive the teaching of that content. And then in informal learning, Texas Tech University, they have taken a collection of pottery, made it accessible to students by scanning digitally that pottery and make it available in this platform. They found that students engage about 7 minutes with the pottery in that space versus under a minute if they're looking at the real object behind a glass wall and with a text panel. And then finally, an example where someone took the platform and just built from it. At Vanderbilt University, some researchers in the neuroscience and engineering department built what's called neurotargeting, where through a cranial cloud, they're able to take complex data sets and compare patient data to those data sets to determine courses of action with their patients. So we look forward to partnering with many of you. Within 5 minutes of entering the room this morning, I connected with 3 people that I said, you know, we could do all of this stuff together. So it's nice that Kariki's provided us with this forum to come together and share our ideas. Thank you.
Thank you so much for our presenters today. We're about to take about a 10-minute break, so please get up, stretch, and we'll see you back here at the top of the hour at 11 o'clock. Thank you.
A little bit premature on that one. Just innovative.